So I wanted to jump in and look at some of the ways we can look at PeopleXD Evo and look at some of the strategic workforce management functionality. So here we are in the manager dashboard, primarily focusing on the workforce management roster dashboard. Now there's numerous ways we can collect time and attendance information alongside things like clocking in to full roster and full auto roster functionality in the PeopleXD Evo solution, looking at the right place for the right employees at the right time. We know by some of Emma's statistics there previously that employers focus on productivity leads to culture or strategy issues. 60% can't change shifts when needed, and also those labour costs can be saved hugely through the PeopleXD solution. So we're going to go through some of the functionality today and look at some of those key rostering and auto rostering functionality. Here in the manager dashboard, we can see the specific area that Mike, the manager, is in charge of. He can see some key KPIs on the screen here, look at those breaches of working time directives, looking at planned absences across the different teams, and also factor in budgetary restraints or areas that he needs to focus on. Again, some of these different alerts can be configured by manager Mike there. And we can see the full roster details. Again, thinking about the right people in the right place at the right time. Here we can see Mike's individual team members, the days of the different week they are working, but also those shift patterns, and we can change the roster on the fly. We can also display budgetary in values or hours, again, giving those KPIs to their managers across the different teams and how their roster currently looks. If we look at the different flags and the different areas that we're looking at here, we can see the details across the different team members. We can see when they're due to work, and if we scroll across there, we can see the time and the department or role that they are associated with. Within the roster details screen here, we also have the ability to look at the different areas and the different days. We can change the roster on the fly. We can update this by certain areas or bulk update a full roster if required. We also have the ability to look at a day view as well, so providing that key visibility to those managers around the different staff areas, and the grey areas on the screen here look at those different availability periods that individual is due to work. Again, coming across those people turning up late or calling in sick, a manager has the access and the visibility to slide across those different areas. The manager can also group by specific team areas, specific qualifications, and also can input absences on the fly in that roster screen here, again providing that flexibility, visibility, and key information across the different teams. If we input an absence here, we can select the leave type. The better the narrative and the more leave type and reasons we put in here, the better the trends and the analytics out of the back of the PeopleXD solution. We can then save that absence detail away. We can then add additional return to work information, as well as look at those absences in the total. You'll notice there that sick leave has then been updated on that roster, again providing that key insight and visibility to those managers across those different teams. If we look at the time exceptions element of the solution, again, not just clocking in and clocking out, but what happens if individual employees clock in late, they do extra hours relating to a certain project. Again, how is that going to be paid by the manager through a full approval process? It's all workflowed into the payroll module. Again, as it's a unified solution, the PeopleXD solution, anything pay affecting will end up in the payroll module, again providing key insights and visibility to those different areas and different employees around Mike's team here. We can see Alice with an unexplained absence. We can see Mike there that was late, again due to their clocking information, clocking in and clocking out, and also those extra overtime shifts that have been agreed by employee and manager. Again, right colleagues in the right place at the right time. We can approve that specific lateness, approve that overtime, and also create those different leniencies in the solution from a time exceptions perspective. Calculating and capturing all this time and attendance data as well can be done by clocking in, clocking out via the kiosk app, by the mobile application, or also through the desktop as well. A variety of ways of capturing those employee details and time and attendance. Here we can see a blank roster or rota for the next week, so we can see every single member of staff is on rest. Now, utilising those roster rules, looking at how many store assistants in this example we require across certain peak or busy areas of the week. We can then factor in how many store assistants, how many managers, how many key holders we require across the organisation or across the different departments. We can then see things like demand, so we require 2 store assistants on Monday. Currently there's 0 scheduled to work. This is where some of our auto roster functionality comes in. We can also factor in the different types of shift patterns as well, so whether it's an early start, whether it's a late finish, or whether it's a day shift as well. Again, looking at those statistics, those rules around the different roster elements, ensuring that you have the correct number of staff in the busy times and the right amount of staff and skills in the right places across those busy periods. Again, looking at all of these bits of key information around the roster speeds up that process so the flexible working can be organised, but also we can then auto roster based on these background rules to ensure that you have the correct people with the correct qualifications or skills in the right places. So if we go ahead and click that auto roster button there, that is going to look at all of those rules in the background, and this can also include looking at people working Saturdays or Sundays on a weekly basis. Again, thinking about being flexible amongst the teams as well. Looking at some of those stats that Emma talked about, with 23% saying unsociable hours is the main reason employees quit. You'll see in a number of seconds there, clicking the auto roster button, that has now filled our workforce management roster dashboard, looking at all of those rules, looking at all of those changes, and now we can see and change that roster on the fly if we wanted to change someone's shift pattern in particular. Now we can see the statistics off the back of that to the required areas. We can also start to look at uncovered shifts, so those shifts that haven't yet been filled by suitable individuals. Here we can see those specific shifts. Now we can assign those individually to the required or individual employees that have passed that initial step, looking at those rules and background rules, or alternatively we can publish those available shifts to a recommended team, maybe bank staff, the home team, or select individual employees. Again, providing that flexibility means that people are in the correct place, but also have a good work-life balance across the different teams. Think about the huge saving of labour costs in here. That took a minute or 2 to create that auto roster with those key background rules and regulations in there. Again, speeding up that process for managers. They're happier, and employees are a lot happier with the shifts that they are due to work in the coming weeks and months. You can also create cyclical shifts as well, so 4 on, 4 off. We know that a lot of different industries require a lot of different shift patterns with different areas of the organisation throughout the year. Now we move to the mobile application. So again, employees have the visibility on the different areas, the different shifts that they are due to work in advance. Again, they are used to the shift patterns they are due to work. Again, thinking about that increase in productivity and those labour saving costs. We're not having to draft anyone in or agencies last minute. And again, 60% of individuals saying they can't change shifts when needed. We're providing that visibility in the PeopleXD solution. Alongside the capturing of those roster details, we also have the ability to look at the annual leave. So submitting annual leave through the mobile application or desktop from employees, we can see our entitlement, how many days we've carried over and how many days we've taken. Simply by clicking the button on the screen, we can then select the specific areas and the specific dates that we want to select for that annual leave. Again, this could be an annual leave in days or hours, but also it could be that time in lieu has been accrued via those extra hours worked that we saw earlier on. If we take a minute to look at the submission of that annual leave in the PeopleXD mobile app, we can then see those previous requests that have been submitted and the status in which those approvals are at. So again, employees have full knowledge and visibility. We're simply selecting the dates that we want to have off. And again, in here, background rules can be configured by heads of departments if there's certain areas of the organisation that only allow certain people to be off at certain times. Again, getting the right people in with the right skills, but also not allowing them to overbook leave when peak times occur. Going back to the main screen as well here, we can then see those shifts that I talked about in the future, so employees know when they're due to work as far in advance as you require them to. We can then see the shifts, any leave requests in their employee calendar, again providing that full visibility as well. And if there were to be background rules in play there for absences or annual leave requests, you can see other individuals that are due to be off or you're working alongside on specific times and dates. As I mentioned earlier, you can also clock in and clock out throughout the mobile application. Again, in here, that's going to look at our geofence locations through the mobile application so that individuals are clocking in the right places. Alongside this, you also have the PeopleXD kiosk app, which is a tablet or an iPad that a user can input their code. Thinking about the timesheets example, we then submit a store assistant for extra hours worked in that agreed time scale for managers. We can then submit that extra hours that we've worked on a certain project, and it will end up in the payroll module, and it's a unified solution in the payroll module and pay affecting. We also have that shift swap key functionality. So again, the flexibility for employees to shift swap. Again, here it's going to look at the skills with the individual. So you're not being left short with key holders, fire wardens, and all of those key store managers that need those key individuals in at certain times. It's going to run through those background rules and can also include an approval or rejection via managers if you wish. Again, this is key functionality to provide flexibility for employees. Again, reasons for leaving the organisation where shifts aren't flexible enough. We then have uncovered shifts as well. So publishing those uncovered shifts that I talked about earlier, an employee can go into the mobile app, view those uncovered shifts and accept or decline those uncovered shifts. That is going to update their calendars, those shift areas, and also then they'll be paid for that extra hours or extra work that they've completed. Again, it's one single unified solution. There's no manual entry, manual inputs, imports or exports here. We're looking at that full roster capability, but also those key time and attendance areas too. In here we have the availability hours as well, so employees can look at the different availability options, and again this is them not determining the different shifts that they want to require. Again, it just provides that flexibility for managers. So if you'd like to find out more, please reach out to the team. Thank you.